Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 17 of the AdQuick Madvertising Podcast, a podcast that explores the intersection of technology, advertising, marketing, content, agency life, brand life, everything in between. Today, we have Dennis Hegstad with us in studio. He is here in Austin. He's an Austin-based entrepreneur, startup advisor, online provocateur. He's one of my favorite people. I'm a personal friend of his and a fan of his work for many years. Welcome to the podcast, Dennis.
Good to be here. And yeah, we've been friends for like 10 years almost. Or maybe.
100%, a long time. And of course, as usual, we have my co-host, Chris Gadek.
Hey, good to be with you.
So we are here in sunny Austin. It is warm outside. We're in a really cool space. This space is actually going to be built into a whole podcast studio. There's a lot of empty CRE, commercial real estate. And so it's cool to see that the space is getting revitalized in a way that's more interesting than just more cube farms. I don't know that anyone's super excited to work in cube farms. So at the very least, do something interesting with the space, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So Dennis, before we actually get into actual like business and marketing and tech and what's happening in the world, there's so much there. You are a very consistent and avid runner. I follow all of your running updates where you do like, he's doing like 7-8 miles in like 100-degree weather here in Texas. So how did you get into running as a hobby? Have you been doing that forever, or is that a new thing?
I started running when I lived in Los Angeles just because I was messing around a little too much, having a little too much fun. And I needed to find like a new, I don't want to call it an addiction, but like a place to spend healthy time. And it went from like partying all night to getting up at 6 and going running. And then COVID hit and my building shut down. I didn't have anywhere to run. So it was like, you had to go outside. And then that kind of turned into like, hey, you should probably keep running 30, 40 miles a week. And it's sort of been like a stability discipline thing in terms of like, when I run 5-6 days a week, I can't fuck off that much.
And in like the heat, do you get into like a sort of Zen flow state where you're like pushed past the being tired?
To be honest, right now it's so fucking hot. I'm not running at the peak of the day. I ran this morning at 6:30 because the humidity is maybe 90%, but the temperatures are like 75. But there's people out there running like 20 miles in the morning. I'm only doing like 7 or 10, so it's not so bad.
Nice. And I liked what you said about you sort of pivoted from the 20-something, partying, maybe indulging a little bit too much. You were never, that far down that path. But now you've channeled that energy and, repetitiveness and addiction into a healthy habit, which I think is awesome. I wish like if more people did that, I think everyone would be a lot happier.
Yeah, I still have a ways to go, but it's been a good progression for sure. And a lot of people in the running community are like, I think, have a similar story where they like had something and this is like their new thing and this is the better thing.
Or especially if you stay in Los Angeles for a little bit too long. I mean, we're
right.
Venice based, so that lifestyle could catch up with you for sure.
Yeah, you were in LA as well, and now we're all in Austin.
There's a good community here too. I think like so many people in Austin are active. If you have like an interest in running or business, there's like a lot of that here, right? Totally. Or biking or any type of triathlete type, Ironman type sports or any endurance sports. There's a lot of it here.
I know also there's a girl here, Elle, that does like a Saturday startup walk that like 50 people go on.
Yeah, my old neighbor, I think Curran started it, and then he moved, and she kept doing it, and now it's grown to be a thing.
Yeah, if you are in Austin right now where you visit, I'm sure they'd be happy to have you on their walk.
Saturday morning walks.
Awesome. So, Dennis, you have gone through a lot over the last few years. For those who don't know, Dennis is sort of a serial entrepreneur. And he built and sold a Shopify app. Is that a fair description? Called LiveRecover?
Yeah, we focus on other platforms too, but 90% of revenue is Shopify. Yeah.
Awesome. And so the journey that you went through you kind of went through this like unique journey because a lot of startup founders fail to find product market fit or get traction. And you guys had that from like the early days of MVP, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. To be fair, we weren't the first text message marketing application focusing on retail brands online, right? It was Attentive had raised a seed round of 10 million, which was a huge signal. The founder, Brian Long, had started and sold another company to Twitter for almost $200 million. I was pretty familiar with who he was. I was currently running ads at the time in 2018, or this was 2017. I was running ads for Fashion Nova, which was #1 on Shopify by revenue. And so for me, I was behind the scenes seeing how all these apps were being utilized and adopted, what the spend was with the apps, how much of an impact it made. And so my business partner and I were like talking about some of that stuff privately. And he's like, I can build one of these apps in like a couple of weeks. And I think we should do this idea. And if you want to be my co-founder, let's do it. And we just dove in. And yeah, there was not of course, in 2018, people were like, SMS is spammy, you know. What do you mean SMS? And then by 2020, they're like, have you heard of these 6 competitors that you're not? And we're like, do you remember when I pitched you SMS like every 3 months for the last 2 years?
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, well, have you heard of SMS now? And I'm like, okay. So yeah, we were early, but we stayed in the game long enough to kind of catch the tailwind instead of just having to do a lot of the educational stuff.
And for marketers who might not be believers, can you tell them the crazy amount of people that with the right SMS push will complete a conversion who perhaps didn't before? It's like a crazy amount.
Yeah,
right?
the conversion rates on some of the conversations, it's very dependent on the brand, the discount strategy of the brand, and what the price point is and things like that. But we had for the first year, my business partner and I sent every text because we were not an automated platform. Every text was sent by a human on the other end in real time. And for the first year, my business partner and I did every text for all of our merchants. We were up at 8 a.m, going to bed at midnight, Christmas, Thanksgiving, our birthdays, girlfriends' anniversaries, parents' birthdays. We were doing every conversation. So we learned how to build all the best tools to manage these conversations. But people would say, fuck you, you're a chatbot. And we would respond back with a SpongeBob meme, like, give me all your money. And they're like, oh shit, this is a human. Converted, boom. And they're like, this is so cool. I'm so sorry, I was having a bad day. I thought you were a bot. And we're like, this is the difference, right? And like the conversion rates for some brands were 30%.
It's wild. It's like an insane number.
Some were 8. If you were in the 8, under 10%, we even had a notice on the dashboard that said like you are in the lowest percentile of recovery rate for checkout, and you need to modify your discount strategy or the language because you're not up to par with the rest of the platform.
I want to get more into startups and tips for entrepreneurs, but I want to stay on SMS for a second. If you're a marketer and you haven't used SMS before, can you give us a little wisdom of when it's a welcome message versus when someone's immediately going to hate you forever for texting them?
Yeah, so I think, our philosophy, even though we were a platform and not the brand, was text people like you would probably text your friends and family, right? If you're like going on a date or if you're going to go hang out with a friend and you have plans and you're like, hey, let's meet at 5 and they don't respond, you don't need to, like, maybe you send one text at like 5 or 4:50 to confirm, but you don't like send a text at 6 and 7:30 and 8 and 9. You become that annoying friend really fast. And I think you become an annoying brand like 5 times faster. So I think thinking about it from that perspective is like abandoned checkout recovery or cart recovery for us is very high intent. Most of the time you left because you either forgot something happened in your life, the price was an issue, or there was a question that didn't get like answered in terms of the product. And so if we can pretty much account for 3 out of 4 of those, because something happened in your life or reminding you, if you had a question, we can probably answer it. If you have a price issue, then we can give you a discount. And then like whatever the 4th issue is, like maybe we can't solve for that. And so we would, most of the time when it's a high intent event that had just happened, churning from a subscription or abandoning a checkout that you didn't buy, that is a more welcome message. But I think if you're just like, hey, click here to sign up to our newsletter and you can get some whatever free ebook or SMS, and then for the next week you get 5 texts every other day, in a week you're going to churn, right? It's not like I didn't even have time to think about what this was yet. So I think just thinking about it like that, don't send more texts than emails, right? Send like a fraction of them. But obviously there's probably some data that shows that, hey, as long as I keep building my list and I can decay my list a little bit slower than I build it, then it's growth and it's profitable, then, maybe that works. It just depends on how you want to treat your brand, I think.
I got a question for you, Dennis. So like a lot of the entrepreneurs on the in this Shopify ecosystem building their companies, we see this on Twitter. They have a revolving door of metrics that they track. But a lot of entrepreneurs that I know build products to solve or optimize against a certain metric. So obviously we're talking about retention and churn in the context of LiveRecover. Was that something that kind of shaped how you went to market with the product?
To be honest, my business partner had his own dropshipping store and I had my own charcoal mask brand and I was consulting at Fashion Nova. So we were like, let's solve for our own problem, which is like, we have abandoned cart recovery Facebook Messenger bots that are going, but people are sending a message back to them and none of them are getting answered. So half the inbox is just people asking questions that could be dollars that are converted if they had been managed, the conversations, right? So instead, we're just like, well, our theory was like, we don't love Facebook. Historically, they've been known to de-reach you and take away your likes or make it so you can't access this. So our thought was, why would we build a list on Facebook Messenger when you could build it on SMS and take that with you anywhere, just like an email?
That makes sense.
And so that was that's why we started that with that.
I also like that the startup was built because it was a need for something that they wanted to do with their company, which is actually how AdQuick was founded. Matt started our company because he was tired of, he saw out-of-home billboards were working really well for Instacart, where he was an early employee, and he was having to call tens, if not hundreds of media owners to book billboards. He's like, why can't I do this in one app, right? So I think that's like, for B2B, it's like the sort of Nirvana inspiration is, holy shit, I'm trying to do this one thing that's really hard. What if I made it easy for everyone?
For sure. And I think the one part that made us different, well, obviously I said we were peer-to-peer texting is what it's called, person-to-person, peer-to-peer. But because of that, if you get an automated text from any platform, it doesn't matter who, if it's a question, hey, I want to buy this bagel, is it gluten-free? And you don't respond because it's automated, then you just lost that sale. It's like the equivalent of having a live chat widget on your homepage, and then whenever you click on the live chat, it's like, I'm sorry, we're closed, leave a form submission. Well, why did show me the live chat button then? Right? You should have just not shown this if you're offline. And so we think that the opportunity was, you need to capture that in real time, that conversation. Otherwise, why send the text? And so the problem was that most brands don't have the resources to support that conversation all the time. From 8 a.m. until 9 p.m., supporting all time zones in the United States, you need essentially 3 people working full time, 7 days a week to cover all of that. And we did that for brands for a fraction of the price. And then if you had the resources to cover all of those time zones and manage all the conversations, and you're probably too big for our business.
Can you quantify, if I'm a brand right now, how much better you think a human responder is than the current wave of AI chatbot?
I don't know actually, but that's a conversation that I think is going to be good for the brands doing human powered versus the AI sort of layered. Is that AI is still like a toy. It's still awesome in so many ways, but it's still a toy in so many ways. And when it really matters, it really matters. You can't fuck the conversation up. And a human is going to do a better job than a chatbot, like 9 out of 10 times. If you ask a chatbot what the weather is outside, it's going to tell you like a paragraph about all the data. And I'm like, I want to know if it's hot or cold. Do I wear a sweater or do I wear a shirt? Okay, well, it's 99.9 degrees and the temperature is this and the UV rays are this. There's not. I just asked what it feels like outside.
Yeah, we just built that. We just shipped an AI planning assistant. Think of it like a media planning assistant for people who are looking to book. And it's still to this day, we still see a little bit of the hallucinations. Hey, you can find resources here, and we're slowly modifying it. But it's that's something that you come across fairly often.
Yeah, wouldn't it just make up URLs?
And then you click on the URL, it's just 404. So I'm like, shit.
Yeah, imagine you drink alkaline water, and it's like someone asks if this cures cancer, and the AI is like, well, alkaline water could cure cancer based on the study. Like, no, alkaline water based on our legal team, we have to say cannot cure anything. Right. So there's, I think, it'll probably amplify the human value for now until there's a way that AI gets caught up or has like more of a color within the lines, not make the lines as you go.
So I don't know if Dennis was reading my questions here, but he started to lead into the next one, which is perfect.
I wasn't. I can't see.
I don't even need a script if he's just gonna like do this for me. But so if you're this is I think a hot question. Chris is like, should we ask this? This is spicy.
Always.
Or like anyway, if you're a D2C company and you're running on Shopify right now, and like you're doing okay, maybe you're doing well through just Facebook marketing, or you're not doing well. Is it time to diversify away? Is that something you should always be doing? Should you not care and just always eat from Facebook as much as you can? How would a Shopify founder think about Facebook right now?
I mean, I think if you want scale and you're talking about running paid ads and you're not running Facebook, then that would be equivalent to saying, I don't want to sell my product on Amazon. That's ignorant and dumb. But I think if you're only Facebook dependent, then you're up for a ebb and flow of of customer acquisition costs that you might have less or more control over. But if everyone's leaving Facebook, then that's the time to go on Facebook, right? Like during COVID, everyone's like, we're leaving Facebook. All these advertisers are breaking up with them, and they're like, cool, record ad revenue. Everyone left though. Yeah. And that was a time that every brand's like, sweet, we're tripling our budgets because all the big guys are leaving, and they don't run ads for CPAs. They run brand awareness campaigns where they're just like, earn media value. We're willing to spend $100 million a year on movies, and we don't really know if it works or not. But the people who are running ads for actual transactional return on a first click or maybe second click basis, they are going to be the ones that spend more because the costs go down during those weird times.
And I mean, Adam did the same thing for us where basically when Twitter started getting into their whole fiasco.
Yeah, that's like when you want to spend.
Yeah, he's like, all right,
wait,
like,
it's basically free. Look how cheap the CPMs are. Why would you not just have something on?
Yeah, so I think like Facebook is probably like the base layer, Facebook, Instagram, right? And then Google, and then YouTube. And then once you're there, then it becomes like, okay, what else is not experimental but still exists? There's obviously things like out of home, like AdQuick. There's things like Taboola and Outbrain and content recommendation networks. There's direct mailers. There's all that kind of stuff. There's a limited amount of stuff though, right? So it's like,
but the next is for the reason why I was like, we should throw this question in is because like we're on Twitter a lot, like the three of us, and I just know over time I've just noticed that there's like ups and downs and it seems like a roller coaster ride for the people who are buying on behalf of D2C brands. That like, the ROAS, or return on ad spend for those who are not familiar with the term, but like, one metric will be completely sideways for like 4 days straight and they're like ready to jump off a bridge.
right.
And so I imagine that can't be too healthy.
Yeah, I think marketers got conditioned to like up only bull runs of, platforms just continuing to bring in more traffic, more revenue. And that's actually not internet Lindy. That's like kind of like weird. We had such uninterrupted, growth of these mega platforms. And I think we're actually starting to ask that question about Facebook because I think we're at least starting to see the beginning of a more decentralized internet once again. A lot of my friends who weren't blogging before for years have now started blogging. They've started, their own newsletters, their own podcasts. A lot of brands are realizing, hey, maybe I shouldn't just sell through Amazon. I should also sell through my website and, where I can actually control everything. That's not to say Facebook and Amazon, et cetera, aren't going away. I think people are just also wanting to create their own moat however they can.
That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Like, if you lose one channel, then you still have 5 other channels that you're running ads on. If you only rely on Facebook and then Facebook goes down and you lose all your ad accounts because you get banned, then you're fucked.
Yeah.
Cool. But you kind of outlined this kind of progression. You start here, and you move to YouTube, then you go to Amazon. Kind of maybe help our audience understand when's a good timing to actually start thinking about that. It's like, will you start seeing saturation, or you see your current channels plateau? What is the signal that you kind of see your customers have, in regards to diversifying their channel mix?
Yes, I mean, I haven't run a brand since 2018, right. But I invested in a handful of DTC brands and some that just launched this year, like in January. And they're kind of taking the organic TikTok approach because there's sort of low cost to build some content, get however much content you can on TikTok organically, and kind of spam TikTok.
Right.
Hope that, I mean it by spamming, like not make 50 different accounts for your brand and upload videos on all of those accounts. And then all of them are getting distribution through TikTok, and you just hope that they hit the algo and some get big and some don't. That is not a scalable strategy. Like just like going viral is not a strategy. It can work for a little bit to get revenue coming in and validate content and whatever else. But once you start doing that organic approach, this is what I would do too if I owned a brand now, right. Is kind of get low cost, not cheap, but low cost UGC content, user generated content, put it up on TikTok. Kind of spam TikTok, buy some shares or whatever is necessary. And then from there, find the content that works, take it to Facebook, and actually start spending a stable amount per day. And if that scales for a month or 2 months, start to think about where else you can reinvest. If you're profitable. If you're not, well then, right. I don't know what to tell you, but it's not easy to be profitable. Let's just assume that you were profitable or break even on the first order. Then it would be like, okay, how do we start generating profits. We know what our customer acquisition cost on Facebook is. We know what it is on TikTok. How can I get it 10% less by using affiliates? Okay, we'll pay you 10% less than our customer acquisition cost on Facebook to just go drive us net new customers as an affiliate. Okay, now you have some margin. Now where? Okay, probably branded search on YouTube. I don't like this because people have done it to me, but I would just go run ads against every single one of my competitors. And I call it conquesting. So we'll do a conquesting campaign, run against all of the competitors. Those are going to be expensive, but the conversion rates will be really high. And then from there, I'd probably just start figuring out all the little niche areas, which is like Taboola, Outbrain. I mean, I recommended one of the brands that I work with recently run ads on the Pornhub network, which is called Traffic Junkie. They own all the porn sites, and their CPMs are about 20 cents.
That's thinking outside the box for value.
E24 really did it. E24.com broke up with Facebook in 2013. You guys remember E24?
Yeah, for sure.
They broke up with Facebook, and they wrote this huge note saying that they would not play the Facebook games and how they had spent all this money building their reach, and their page got 2 million likes, and now they can only reach like 20,000 per post. So they broke up with Facebook publicly and did this huge campaign with Subway and like footlongs on E24 on Pornhub. and it was really awesome. Like, it was actually really like done very well.
Tastefully.
It was tasteful.
Tasty sandwich.
But so I thought like I would do something like along those lines where I could find some momentum and scale and then start picking away at margin where I can and use the data from these platforms to justify why I'm not going to pay them I'm not going to pay somebody as much as I'm spending on Facebook. I'm going to pay you less. But if you can, I'll pay you just a little bit less so you have enough margin to make money. And then I would take things in house like influencer, affiliate, and then start experimental podcasts, connected TV, out of home, right? But these are things we're not starting. This is like you're already in multi-million-dollar revenue, probably 5 to 10.
We got him.
So one thing that, as Dennis talked, one thing that obviously to me separates Dennis from a lot of founders that we talk to, not exclusively in Silicon Valley, but it is a very Silicon Valley attitude of, oh, I don't need to do marketing. People will just discover me. And as Dennis spoke, it's obvious that he's actually passionate about marketing and the game of advertising and thinks it's, interesting, like a chess problem to solve. But what do you say to a young founder who's like just has an aversion to marketing and advertising and thinks there's this, everything should be organic. You shouldn't go out and figure out all these hacks. What do you say to that type of founder?
I hope your co-founder is good at marketing.
So basically, it's not really a choice.
I mean, go throw a party and go by yourself. See if it's fun.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I mean, we all agree since we,
if you get the blessing of getting viral and lucky and then you think that that's how things should be every time, then that's awesome. But like, that's not how things work. And I wish it was, but I think that there's something wrong with marketing, right? You're not forcing anybody to do anything. You're just showing people something that they want, potentially.
I think also what's happened is there's some early web success stories that were in the right place at the right time, didn't have to do much marketing, and they were in this sort of blue ocean to be first. And it's like, you can't really listen to those people.
Sure, anybody who launched before 2015 pretty much is like grandfathered into like, what is marketing? We just launched Pinterest. We didn't know what social media was. Oh yeah, we got 200 million users later. We never had to market once.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Now they're all VCs telling us.
And then you talk about someone like Nikita Bear with TBH app and Gas app, who's like seeding installs in niche, high schools in Arkansas and Alabama and making sure he's ranking in, cities and towns and stuff so that he can like really do market research and then essentially hack his way to the front of the app store. Well, like, he just did the opposite of what people thought, right? Oh, it should be organic. It's like, or you can manufacture organic.
Yeah.
As long as it's not fake, where you got like 95% fake users and sell your company for a couple hundred million.
Though, right?
A couple times.
Yeah, he's found.
No. I know about Nikita.
It was the bank.
Like somebody just got.
There was a bank that woman with the bank who sold to like JP Morgan for $3 million.
Yeah.
But then there was just another app that had
Real or
IRL.
IRL.
IRL that was like all fake users. Yeah. Anyway, so don't do that.
Yeah, that's gonna get. I'm surprised that wasn't.
That's not called marketing. That's called fraud. So
I'm surprised that wasn't sussed out during the diligence process.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what it was. They were trying to sell the business, and that's why. But yeah, like, but some of that's personal, private information, right? How do I call a bunch of records and be like, hey, are you a real person? I have to verify we're buying the company that you submitted. There must be some privacy laws around that.
I would imagine so.
Anyway, marketing, yes. Organic,
Yeah. I don't know if you have too much opinions on this next question, but you mentioned, sort of the gambit of we're at zero and we have to claw our way to, some followers, users, revenue versus, you're a marketer and you come into a large company with sort of infinite resources for things. Do you have a sort of size in mind where if you're advising a company or a founder where you get to pivot away from the sort of scrappy stuff to the more, stuff that we sell, the more Mad Men-esque, running YouTube videos and doing sort of, I would say, more creative marketing than just the, user acquisition and fighting it out of the trenches for, some TikTok clicks, right?
Fashion Nova would be one of those examples, but that was 2017, and it's not really fair because the founder, Rich, was very efficiency minded, but their brand had such strong equity value that it was like, he almost didn't believe the ad spend was doing anything because he thought people would just buy anyway. And it was hard to not prove that when let's say you're doing $1 billion a year in revenue and you're only spending $1 million a month on ads, but you're still doing $1 billion a year in revenue. You're like, I don't really think the $1 million a month can spend as much.
Yeah, I think Uber and Airbnb did something similar.
But they're like running ads, but he's like, I don't care what the ROAS says. Like, I don't really, like at the end of the day, I know how much last year to this year, I'm spending more on influencers. That's what's driving the growth. Facebook stuff is like probably very, very, very small. So I haven't had the exposure myself to being able to do anything like that. An investment that I have in a brand called Mad Rabbit. They're a tattoo skincare brand. They just raised $10 million, and that's not quite enough to get to that flexibility, but they are starting to do some out-of-home stuff. Trucks, billboards. I think they're around more events. So like tattoo convention is in some city for a week or a weekend, and they're going to have like a branded, but I'm not involved with it. I'm just like hearing about it. But I think that's the fun stuff, right? It's like more flexibility because you're not so focused just on ROI when you're doing ROI focused marketing, or call it performance marketing versus brand marketing, even though there's a blend of brand and performance. But performance marketing is like, let me do as much as I can to make as much as I can on this first impression.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to know because Coke, for example, just does all brand, but the brand is the performance for Coke. At this point, Coke reinforcing their brand name is just reminding people, I want to Diet Coke, right? And that all leads to performance. Obviously, that's 100 years of investment in brand, but you don't get to the point of being Coke unless, honestly, there's just a bunch of what some people would call wasted spend. I don't think the investment is wasted. I think it's like you're compounding it for later.
Athletic Greens is probably one of the brands in that category right now, where like 2-3 years ago, Athletic Greens was maybe not, but 3 or 4 years ago, they were like a sub $100 million brand. Now they're probably 400 to 500 million. And I see their billboards all over Austin. I'm seeing them on TV ads. Yep. I'm seeing them like at the airport, on airplanes, the packets. I'm like, oh shit, they're like working with, Gate Gourmet is the company that handles all of the food for all of the catering for commercial flights. Mm-hmm. And like the fact that they're going to all these, they're paying to have their product in the first class cabin. And it's like, oh shit, they're really, that's the kind of fun. And then maybe they do the trays on the bottom of the TSA. I mean, I've seen some of those before for movies. I thought that was fucking awesome.
Or like the Kizik shoe brands where you take off your shoes in the security checkpoint at the airport.
It's clever.
Yeah. And like our friends at Athletic Brewing are just signed a deal with JetBlue to get all their stuff on.
I saw that. Yeah. Like all that. I think that stuff is super cool, but I don't have experience with it really. I do think it's cool. Maybe one day.
Yeah. I think there's this pivot for brands. It's usually, what it usually is for a startup. It's like when you're going IPO, typically they clean house of all like the growth people and like the scrappy marketers, and they bring in the sort of larger brand marketers is the thing that happens frequently. I get frustrated with that because in a lot of cases, those marketers could pivot strategy now that they have, however much money from public markets.
Right. One's a performance marketer, one's a brand marketer, and they're not the same person. They kind of could be.
But everything's performance now, really.
Performance person could do brand.
All right, do my career once we get to a certain size.
So I kind of have a reverse question too, because we do have a lot of people listening to this are the big brand marketer with, the infinite money to run TV ads and Super Bowl ads. But in a lot of cases, those marketers, I think, do kind of a poor job online. You see this where like Coke is responding to people with "We all gonna make it," and on Twitter or
like the social media. Run their accounts.
And I guess, is there anything, because you're extremely online, so it's crazy. We're all online.
Terminally.
Is there any words of wisdom you could give to the marketer with infinite money about doing the scrappy tactics that like startups do?
I think that everything is I feel like we're at the point where everything is kind of being done, right? Just being active and part of the conversation is the hack, which is not a hack. It's like being a Reddit user. Everyone's like, I want to post on Reddit and get a lot of traffic from my article and get all this conversation. When you make an account the same day, you post on Reddit and you get nothing. You're like, fuck Reddit. Why doesn't Reddit give me what I want? And then you're like, Joe Schmo, who's been reading 6 subreddits a day for the last 4 years, can post anything and it goes viral because he or she has karma.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the same way it works on social media as a brand or brand manager or whatever it is. It's just like, you can't just like add the icing on top and be like, cool, we baked this into our cake. You're like, no, you didn't. You sprinkle that shit on top and we get it, but we can see it for what it is. I think when you're actually doing it, and Wendy's does a phenomenal job of it.
Yeah.
Like there's certain social media managers / agencies, you don't know if it's one person or a team, but they have a pretty good grasp on like, it's like, doesn't seem like they're even sleeping, right? Shopify too, Threads launches, they got someone on every post, every hour responding. I think, but to reverse, I don't know how impactful that is for brands at that scale. It's just that if they don't do it, someone else will, right? If Shopify is not doing that, then maybe BigCommerce does it or WooCommerce does it, and then they become cool and this topic, and then the Shopify is like second or just less of a part of the conversation, and same thing can go for any brand. So it's sort of like, you sort of just need to be there. The same way that like being terminally online, like you said, it's for better or worse. It's like, if you are always online and people are seeing your posts, whether always online, if you post every day or every other day or whatever, it's harder to forget about who you are, what you're working on, if you're kind of talking about it all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I had a question for you, and I think your background is pretty perfect to explain this, but like, do you see like sort of like homogenous product types or industry types going towards one commerce platform versus another? So like, we're very familiar with Shopify. They're a client of ours. A lot of our clients are built on Shopify. Kind of what does that e-commerce ecosystem look like? Because LiveRecover, right, basically worked on all of them, right?
We did, yeah. So our focus was Shopify, just Shopify when we started. Then we went to WooCommerce. Then we went to CrateJoy, which is a subscription box business that's based here in Austin. Then we went to BigCommerce. I don't know if we fully launched that one or not. And then we had an API to do custom integrations if you were not on a platform that we supported with like a one-click install. But all 90% of the revenue or more was Shopify. And I think just because of Shopify's versioning, like they only have one platform and everyone uses the same version all the time. You don't have to manage that yourself. You go to like a Magento, you go to WooCommerce, you go to a lot of these BigCommerce, they all have older versions, new plugins with different versions. Things can break each other. And so I think Shopify's done a pretty good job of just making it just a level playing field where you don't have to think about all these. It's not very technical, right? It's like you just almost like a drag and drop builder where you don't have to know code and you can go live. Of course, if you want a beautiful custom website, you're going to have an engineer, a designer, and whatever else. But on Magento or any of these other platforms, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, you have to build and manage things a lot more. And I think Shopify's just proven so far that at least for a small business, they're the platform to go with. There's some brands that outgrow Shopify because of the customizations that they need. And I think Shopify is solving for that now. Because if you get so big, like I think Athletic Greens just left Shopify and went to Salesforce Commerce Cloud. But it's because there's certain edge cases that matter so much to the big brands, but Shopify is trying to unify everything a lot. And that sort of centralization of everything means that they can't allow those customizations to happen, and big brands might outgrow that and say, okay, well, this is worth a difference of like multiple millions of dollars for us, so we're going to have to leave.
Got it.
So actually back to Shopify, if you're an entrepreneur and like really passionate about something, it's pretty clear the internet has been awesome to give you an avenue to share that. So an example is if you were really passionate about like a really green floor cleaner, for example, and you didn't want any whatever chemicals in your house, you had sort of the David versus Goliath approach against big CPG, because I don't know about you, I'd rather buy from the person who's like the most passionate about floor cleaner ever than the big CPG company who I have no idea who's working there, what they care about. They're just trying to margin me, right? So do you think that continues to grow? Are there more people on Shark Tank with like these really specific things that a big conglomerate's doing and they can take a chunk. Does that continue forever, or is that a bubble? And are we going to see some consolidation? Because it seems like every week there's another company doing something I could get at Target, but they clearly care more about it and they're selling it online. But I feel like at some point that's saturated. I don't know what your sense is. I know there's probably not much data on this.
Yeah, I've never researched it, but I have a feeling that the people who are the loudest about, and I'm not to talk anything on politics because I don't have an opinion on this, but like, I care about carbon neutral, I care about offsetting my carbon. No, you don't. You don't give a shit. You just care that it says that they're doing something good and that makes you feel better about whatever you're buying. And if that's fine. But like, that's just the same as buying a pair of Tom's shoes and being like, oh, I'm giving to a kid in Africa. I feel good about these shoes. Okay, it's just a marketing tactic. It's fine. And if you feel better about that, then that's fine. But I think big brands can adopt that too. And you'll see them try to do it with initiatives and campaigns and their marketing.
And marketing departments dedicated.
Yeah, but I think that, like, that's not enough to make your niche DTC business a forever brand, right? Like, you see a lot of these brands die out and they don't last very long. And over the last few years, a lot of brands raised VC that are e-commerce businesses that shouldn't have raised VC and that have shut down or sold for a fraction of what they raised, right? And some that I invested in, so rip. But yeah, I think, when's the last time? I'm 34. I'm guessing you're under 40, right? Or are you 40?
Around.
Okay, let's say you're around 40, 35 to 40. Do you go, when you go into a store, do you research who started any of the brands?
No.
Do you care? You just care about convenience, quality to a degree, of course. Like, I don't want certain ingredients or whatever, but like, I think that most people online are impulse buying because they like the product and the problem that they're solving, but they don't really care as much about the story.
Yeah, the only time I buy is if like you and Chris are talking about something online, like the Liquid Death stuff. I only bought it because you guys were all tweeting about it. It's actually really good.
It's fine. Yeah, canned water.
Canned water hits
Canned
different.
teas.
Canned teas.
That's my thing now, because like
Is
it
Peace Tea gone?
It reminds me of like Lipton brisk iced tea that we drank when we were kids.
They still have
yeah.
those.
No,
But there's so much sugar in
There's
them.
now
There's so
now
much
there's
sugar.
sugar. Yeah.
I don't know, right? I think there are certain things that don't happen in those big box retailers, right? Like the Mad Rabbit Tattoo Company, for example. They're going up against sort of the David and Goliath of like them being like, ooh, tattooed people? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's not a market. And then they're like, well, there's actually more tattooed people in America than people with diabetes. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. And then like all of a sudden they're, 8 figures in annual revenue. They're raising a lot of money. And then now all of a sudden Walmart has 2,000 stores that's doing tattoo, and they're opening a tattoo section. And then Target, and then CVS will follow. And then all of a sudden, but like, does that mean that that's going to last? And that's going to, I don't know.
We talked to a guy who runs an agency in New York, your friend Chris, on our last episode, and he said, I asked the same question because he's working with a lot of D2C, and he said the same thing you said with the addendum of the founder is the X factor. He's like, if that founder is the most insane person at X, like, you will want to buy from them again if everything else is as good or better. He's like, the bar has been set that the product has to be as good as you get at the store, but then the founder could be the X factor. And he's like, that's how I sort of like to play, make my bets. And I think he's had some W's, some L's, but he's like, and those are hard to find. The people like yourself, where, when you were first building your startup and sending text messages manually, I think is like the thing that, at least I'm not a venture capitalist or angel investor, but if I were doing that, that would be how I even made a lot of money broke.
Yeah. I mean, that was our thought. We're like, we're either gonna stress ourselves out and lose all of our hair over this, or we're gonna become rich.
Yeah.
And so I guess we got lucky.
The back against the wall thing, though, where this is your only option, I think is what you want. I think when you see
it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, right? Just like I think being born, I don't have this, but if I see it, a lot of friends were born into a lot of wealth. I feel bad for them. I used to look up to that, not look up to, but I used to kind of be jealous and be like, oh man, it must be nice to have all that stuff and whatever. And then now that I'm older, I'm like, man, you're like in your mid 30s and you've never made $1 for yourself and you don't know what it's like to be prideful about anything. It's like all I do is swipe, and it's like, oh, that's so boring.
Yeah, the hedonic goalposts were so far skewed for their life, not just in things they enjoy, but in accomplishment, because they never had to do those.
So that's like the bootstrap versus VC sort of. Not that VC is easier. It's definitely hard. It's all stressful. But I think bootstrapping gives you a little bit more luxury in terms of like the luxury is that you have no other option. But anyway, yeah.
So, Dennis, you're also an investor in a tech market observer, fake investor. I have to ask, because we were asking everyone, what is your take on the current state of the social media wars? Anything you want to comment on? I'm not going to pin you down on something specific, but any sort of observations as to what's happening right
now? I enjoy watching Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk duke it out over whatever they're doing, and I really want to see them fight just because it's so ridiculously dumb, but also like funny. And I kind of think like Zuck seems a lot cooler now, but maybe Elon Musk is gonna just download Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills on the fly and do a Neuralink marketing campaign like Matrix. When Neo's in the dojo, he just learns like, and all of a sudden he just beats Mark's ass, takes threads out of him. I don't know. I think
like Sub-Zero.
Yeah, I think Twitter is Twitter, right? Twitter's culturally ingrained everywhere. How many businesses have Twitter on their business cards, on their logo, painted on the wall, painted on their website's footer, or painted icon on the footer? Whatever it is, Twitter's everywhere. It's going to take a long time to undo that, not to mention app integrations. Twitter is a native app integration in the iPhone. You can tweet something like, it's just built into a recommendation of where you share, right? And I think that Twitter has a better relationship with Apple than Facebook and Meta do. And I just think that Twitter is kind of one, even though Threads pushed a shitload of installs and it looked great. And I mean, I was posting for a couple of days. I don't think I've updated in a week. And I think that Twitter is probably fine.
Yeah, it's a different network than Instagram. I'm not using an Instagram product just because it's not for me. I appreciate everyone who posts there. It's just not interesting place for me, but
I can see it succeeding though. I mean, like
Instagram or Threads
for like the Good Morning America crowd or the Buys People magazine at the
I almost feel like it takes away from Facebook a little bit though, because what you post on Facebook is text and photos. Instagram is just photos, and then now Threads is text and photos. So it's like
I actually like posting to Facebook more than Instagram. I know I'm a boomer, but like I don't have to call like 10 relatives. I can just post a picture of what's going on.
There you go. I'm long Facebook.
I also don't. My existential problem was Meta, and I'm an early Meta user. I was on in college, and I don't like any product that takes away my organic reach. So I have several blogs that have 10,000 fans on Facebook that they throttle to zero unless I would pay. That's clearly their playbook. It's very profitable. They'll make the same money in Instagram and Threads, and people will play it. But like me as a marketer, like I would rather build in Substack or a newsletter, or Beehive, or Twitter doesn't throttle
you. Use Facebook to drive people there.
Yeah, it's but that whole playbook, it's like they're almost always on the attention treadmill. They're almost like putting everyone on that treadmill.
Sure.
Which I don't love. I want to compound, and they sort of remove that ability for you because from investments, if you compound and leave it alone, that's when the magic sort of happens. So Dennis, let's finalize this and wrap up today with hearing what you're up to next. I know you have a new startup that's in progress. Do you want to give us an update as to what's going on?
Sure. Yeah, it's called Vigilance. We're helping from December when we launched until recently, we've been focused on helping e-commerce brands not get taken advantage of by leaked coupon codes. So Honey, Capital One Shopping, Retail Me Not, Rakuten, any of these solutions that hijack leaked codes and inject them into your checkout. We tell brands when they get leaked, block them if they want to, and make sure they don't overspend on commissions for affiliates if they were injected. So an example would be like there's 1,000 orders at the end of the month. Adam drove actually one, but his code leaked to Honey, and now you have 1,000 orders, and the brand is paying you a 10% commission on all the sales based on your coupon code attribution. So now they owe you for 1,000 sales, even though you drove one. We can tell you that 999 came from Honey, and only one was organic. And so that brand would not have to pay you commission on affiliate sales for 999 orders in that example.
Oh, that's interesting.
But we launched in December. We're growing pretty quickly. And then on Valentine's Day, which is coincidental or just ironic, that Shopify had announced something called Checkout One, which meant they were consolidating their checkout into this non-customized version where previously for the last 8 to 10 years, you could customize the checkout however you want with JavaScript. Now you can't customize it at all. And our app relies on customization of the checkout. So our app died with that. So like when you think about platform risk, we got fucked by Shopify, and our app has a deprecation date of August. So, and it's already essentially died because all the merchants were getting moved over to this new checkout, and when they're on the new checkout, the app can't function. So we had been growing customers, and the problem still exists. It's just that we can't solve it, and no other app can either because Shopify got rid of access to the checkout. So humbling experience because we were like, fuck yeah, this is going to be an easy grand slam. We had 2 other wins before, and they all compounded, and no. It's like being a songwriter and saying you're going to write a platinum single every time. It's not how it works. And so, yeah, now we're back to square one and we're building another app.
Can you talk about that?
We're just, so, we've been fortunate that LiveRecover was like an idea of inspiration, right? We had, it was like came from an organic place, and we weren't just like, let's sit down and make an app for money. It was like, oh shit, this will solve a problem for our business, and it's a business. This is probably what we should do. Had 2 of those apps that got acquired, and this was the 3rd app that was also from an organic place. LiveRecover, SMS. We had one of our biggest clients say, hey, your SMS coupons that you text your customers over from abandoned cart recovery keep leaking to Honey, and it messes up our attribution. Can you let us know when that happens? And we're like, damn, that's a business. So we sat on the idea for a few years. We launched it. But now we're sort of just accepting the fact that there's not a new behavioral trend every 6 months, right? There's not a new thing, right? It was Web3 maybe last year, NFTs and token gated, whatever, which NFTs, whether you like them or not, they've decayed pretty much down to 0. And the adoption is like, you really just create more friction than you do less, right? You're educating people on why they need an NFT instead of free shipping. And I guarantee your mom wants free shipping more than an NFT. And so we're just like accepting that we can't chase inspiration, and we're just going to do business, right? And so we're like, okay, where are there places that we can just make money and provide value in the Shopify ecosystem? We think it's affiliate and influencer marketing, which is where I started like 10 years ago with Exposely. I think that's when we met. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to probably just crank out a few other apps that are just experimental, like build an app every 8 weeks.
Awesome, I love it. It's like almost like you guys have like a little venture studio thing.
Yeah, except for no venture financing.
No.
So.
Well, Dennis, this was awesome. Thanks for joining us in this space. I know it's a little scrappy, but we appreciate you. Where can our listeners find you online?
Just Dennis Hegstad on Twitter. Nowhere else matters.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you next week. We have some more exciting guests lined up. As always, like, comment, or subscribe to this video. We appreciate all of the engagement and all of your feedback so far. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.